I always thought family meant support. You stand by each other even when things get tough. That's what I believed, at least until one cold December evening in 2024. When my own family proved me wrong. I had spent weeks preparing for Christmas. I had bought gifts for my parents, my younger brother Logan, his wife Megan, and their 2 kids. I even picked up a few extra presents just in case unexpected guests showed up. I wanted this Christmas to be special, to finally feel like I was part of the family again. But as I walked up the front steps of my parents' house, my hands full of carefully wrapped presents, I noticed something odd. The lights inside were warm and bright shadows moving behind the curtains, but the front door felt cold. I brushed it off, adjusting the bags in my hands, and rang the doorbell. My mom opened the door, her face tight, eyes flicking nervously to the side. She hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Ethan, we don't want you here this year." Her voice was shaky, like she was struggling to say the words. I froze. My brain tried to catch up with what I was hearing. Was this some kind of twisted joke? But before I could ask, Logan appeared behind her, arms crossed, leaning casually against the doorframe. "This isn't a place for losers, Ethan," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. His words hit me like a punch to the gut, knocking the wind out of me. I glanced past my mother, catching a glimpse of my father in the living room, his eyes fixed firmly on the television, refusing to look my way. I felt a wave of emotions crashing over me: shock, humiliation, and a growing, simmering anger. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out. My mother's eyes fell to the floor, her silence more cutting than any words she could have spoken. I stood there for a moment, my breath fogging up in the cold air, before I simply nodded. "All right," I said, my voice steady but hollow. I turned on my heel, my boots crunching against the frozen steps, and walked back to my car. As I tossed the bags of presents into the passenger seat, I felt a coldness settle deep in my chest. I sat there for a few seconds, my hands gripping the steering wheel, staring at the frost forming on the windshield. It felt like the world had just shifted, the foundation of my life cracking beneath me. But as I sat there, the anger began to burn away the shock. Memories of the countless times I had helped Logan and his family flashed through my mind, paying off his credit card debt when he lost his job, covering his kids' school supplies, even pitching in for his mortgage when times got tight. I had been there for him, again and again. And this was my thanks. Being cast out like some unwanted guest at my own family's Christmas. Something inside me hardened in that moment. Maybe it was the cold air seeping into the car, or the realization that I had allowed this dynamic to form over the years. But I knew one thing for sure: I was done being the family's financial crutch. I took a deep breath, turned the key in the ignition, and pulled out of the driveway. My tires crunched against the icy gravel, the taillights casting a red glow over the snow-covered yard as I drove away, the house growing smaller in my rearview mirror. This Christmas might have started with me feeling like the black sheep, but it would end with me finally breaking free from this twisted sense of obligation. I drove through the dark, empty streets, the cold creeping into my bones despite the heater blasting at full power. The bags of presents rattled quietly beside me, with every turn a bitter reminder of my wasted effort. I had spent weeks planning for this Christmas, pouring my time and money into gifts, hoping to reconnect with a family that clearly didn't want me around. When I finally pulled into my driveway, I just sat there, the engine humming beneath me, staring at my darkened front porch. I felt like an outsider, not just in my parents' home, but in my own life. For years I had shouldered the weight of my family's struggles, always ready to step in when they hit rough patches. But tonight, that sense of obligation felt like a chain around my neck, slowly tightening. I thought back to all the times I had helped Logan. He's always been the reckless one, diving headfirst into bad decisions without thinking about the consequences. I had covered his rent when he got laid off 2 years ago, paid for his kids' summer camp when Megan's part-time hours weren't enough, and even co-signed a car loan when his credit score tanked. And now the same brother I had sacrificed so much for had the nerve to call me a loser. I leaned my head back against the seat, my jaw-clenched, fingers still wrapped tightly around the steering wheel. It was like the fog had finally lifted, revealing the harsh reality I had been ignoring for too long. I had been used, no worse, I had allowed myself to be used. I had become Logan's personal ATM, and he had grown so comfortable with it that my absence this Christmas felt like a betrayal to him. I replayed the scene at my parents' doorstep in my mind over and over, the anger building with each pass. I thought about my father sitting silently in the background, avoiding my eyes like a coward. I thought about my mother, her lips pressed together in that familiar tight line of disappointment. And most of all, I thought about Logan. His smug face, the way he had leaned against the doorframe, like he was some sort of king casting out a peasant. I slammed my fist against the steering wheel, the sudden pain cutting through the numbness that had settled over me. I wasn't just hurt, I was furious. Furious at them for treating me this way. Furious at myself for letting it happen. That night I barely slept. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying years of sacrifices, missed vacations, delayed dreams, all for a family that saw me as nothing more than a wallet. By the time the gray light of dawn crept through the blinds, I had made a decision. I was done. Done being the dependable older brother who cleaned up everyone's messes. Done being the invisible son whose efforts went unnoticed. Done being the easy target for their misplaced frustration and entitlement. But as I sat down at my kitchen table nursing a bitter cup of coffee, I realized that simply walking away wasn't enough. Logan had crossed a line and I needed to make sure he understood that. He needed to feel the weight of his own choices, just as I had felt the burden of his irresponsibility for years. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my financial records, the ones I had kept meticulously for years. Every payment I had ever made for Logan, every bailout, every loan, all neatly organized. I had the proof, I had the power, and this time I was going to use it. I would make sure Logan finally stood on his own 2 feet, even if it meant cutting the rope he had been clinging to for so long. I wouldn't just walk away from this toxic dynamic, I would burn the bridge behind me, ensuring there was no way back. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and cold, calculating anger. Logan wanted to treat me like a loser. Fine. I would show him what happens when you push the only person who ever truly had your back away. This wasn't just about Christmas anymore. It was about taking back my dignity, my peace of mind, and my life. A few days later, I was in the middle of sorting through my old financial records, trying to piece together just how much I had sacrificed for Logan over the years. The numbers were staggering. Thousands of dollars in emergency loans, rent payments, and surprise expenses that he never seemed to pay back. I felt a bitter taste in my mouth as I realized just how deeply I had let myself be used. I had just pulled up my bank statements from the past 5 years when my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I glanced at the screen, frowning at the unknown number. I hesitated for a moment before picking up. "Hello, Ethan. This is Mark Dawson. I'm a lawyer representing Megan. Do you have a few minutes to talk about some financial matters related to your brother?" I froze, the steam rising from my untouched cup of coffee, suddenly feeling like a fog creeping around my brain. Megan. What could she possibly need a lawyer for, and why was he calling me? Yeah, I have a moment, I replied cautiously, my mind racing through 1,000 worst-case scenarios. Mark's tone was calm, professional, but there was a weight to his words that immediately set me on edge. I understand this might come as a surprise, but Megan recently discovered some concerning information about Logan's finances, and it involves you. I felt my pulse quicken, a cold sweat breaking out on my forehead. What do you mean? Would you be able to meet me at my office later this week? I think it would be better to discuss this in person. I can promise you it's worth your time. I agreed, my mind still spinning as I hung up the phone. I leaned back against the kitchen counter, my thoughts racing. What could this possibly be about? Had Logan done something illegal? Had he dragged my name into some kind of financial mess without my knowledge? The days leading up to that meeting were a blur. I barely ate, barely slept. My mind consumed with every possible scenario. I ran through our history in my head, every dollar I had ever given him, every bill I had ever covered. Had he been using my money for something other than the family expenses he always claimed he needed help with? When the day of the meeting finally arrived, I walked into Mark's office feeling like a man heading to his own execution. The walls were a calming shade of blue and the faint scent of leather and coffee hung in the air, but the tension in my shoulders felt like iron bars. Mark greeted me with a firm handshake and gestured for me to take a seat. He slid a thick folder across the polished wooden desk, his expression serious. Megan came to me a few weeks ago, deeply concerned about Logan's spending habits. She stumbled upon a bank statement he had carelessly left out, and what she found didn't add up. She started digging, and what she discovered was troubling, to say the least. I flipped open the folder, my eyes scanning the pages inside. At first it was just numbers, rows of transactions, account balances. But then I started to recognize the dates, the amounts. Transfers from my account to Logan's, matching the times I had helped him with emergencies. But instead of paying for his kids' school supplies or household bills, the money had been funneled into a separate account, one that Megan hadn't known existed. Logan has been hiding this account for years. Mark continued, his voice steady but sharp. He's been using the money you sent for gambling, expensive dinners, and even a few trips you likely didn't know about. I felt my face grow hot, my jaw clenching as I continued flipping through the pages. There were charges for luxury hotels, online gambling sites, and high-end restaurants. The man I had spent years supporting, the brother I had thought I was helping through tough times, had been living a double life at my expense. Mark paused, letting the weight of the discovery sink in. Megan isn't looking to drag you into their marital problems, Ethan, but she felt you deserved to know the truth. She's considering her options now, but I thought it would be better for you to hear this from me rather than through the grapevine. I sat there, the papers trembling slightly in my hands. A wave of betrayal and humiliation crashed over me, each new detail a fresh cut. Logan had lied to me. He had taken advantage of my generosity, used my money to fund a lifestyle I could only dream of, while making me feel like the selfish one for not doing enough. I closed the folder, slowly setting it back on the desk. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my shaking hands. "Thank you, Mark," I managed to say, my voice rough. "Thank you for letting me know. I need some time to process this." Mark gave me a sympathetic nod, his eyes holding a flicker of understanding. "Take all the time you need. Just know that you're not alone in this. And if you need any help moving forward, you have my number." As I walked out of that office, the December wind biting at my face, I felt a strange mix of emotions: anger, betrayal, and a deep, aching sadness. But beneath it all, a small spark of clarity had ignited. For the first time in years, I could see the truth for what it was. Logan wasn't just my brother, he was a leech, and it was time to finally cut him off. I drove home from Mark's office in a daze, the folder of betrayal still fresh in my mind. The snow-covered streets blurred past my windshield as I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white with anger. How could Logan do this to me? How could my own brother betray me like this, taking advantage of my kindness, my trust, my sacrifice? By the time I pulled into my driveway, my mind was made up. I wasn't going to confront Logan with just anger. No, that's what he would expect, and I had no intention of giving him the satisfaction. Instead, I was going to do this on my terms, in a way that he couldn't twist or manipulate. 2 days later, just as I was settling down for a rare quiet evening, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. Logan. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the decline button, but then I decided to pick up. This conversation was long overdue. Ethan, Logan's voice crackled through the line, his tone tense. "We need to talk." I took a deep breath, forcing my voice to remain steady. "Oh, now you want to talk? After calling me a loser and slamming the door in my face? I'm not sure what we have left to say, Logan." He let out a harsh sigh, clearly irritated by my lack of immediate submission. "Look, I've had some issues lately. Things have been tight and I need a little help." I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat, the nerve of this man. After all that had come to light, he still had the audacity to ask for help. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling as I forced myself to stay calm. "Help, you mean like the thousands of dollars I've already poured into your life? The mortgage payments, the car loans, the school fees? Is that the kind of help you're talking about, Logan?" There was a brief pause, and I could almost hear the gears turning in his mind, trying to figure out how much I knew. I waited, letting the silence stretch just long enough to make him squirm. "Ethan, come on," he finally said, his tone shifting to something resembling a plea. "We're family. We help each other out. That's what you always said." I felt my jaw tighten. "Funny how you remember that part, but forget the years I spent cleaning up your messes, bailing you out of every financial disaster you walked into. You know what, Logan? You were right. I don't belong with people like you. I'm done being your safety net." There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line, and then his voice took on a harder edge. "What the hell are you talking about? You think you're better than me? Just because you have a little more money now." I felt my pulse spike, but I forced myself to stay calm. I had the upper hand here, and I wasn't going to let him drag me down to his level. "Actually, Logan, it's not just about the money. It's about respect. It's about the years I've spent putting your needs above my own, sacrificing my peace of mind so you could keep pretending to be the man you clearly never were." Silence. I could almost picture him, his face twisted in that familiar sneer, his fists clenched as he struggled to come up with a comeback. "You don't know what you're talking about." He spat, his voice growing louder. "You have no idea what I've been through." I felt a cold, bitter smile stretch across my lips. "Oh, I think I do. I've seen the bank statements, Logan. The secret account, the gambling, the dinners at fancy restaurants, the luxury hotels. While I was breaking my back to support you, you were living a double life on my dime. How long did you think you could keep this up?" There was a long, heavy silence. I could hear his breathing, sharp and uneven, like a cornered animal realizing it's out of options. "Ethan, listen." "No, you listen." I cut him off, my voice cold and clear. I'm done. I'm done funding your lies. I'm done covering your mistakes. You're a grown man, Logan. It's time you started acting like one. Don't ever call me for money again. You're on your own. I hung up before he could respond, my hand trembling slightly as I set the phone down. I took a deep breath, the weight of years of resentment and betrayal slowly lifting from my shoulders. For the first time in years, I felt free. The chains that had bound me to my brother's failures had finally broken, and I had no intention of ever letting him shackle me again. I poured myself a drink, the ice clinking softly in the glass as I sat down on my worn leather couch, the distant hum of the city outside my window. I had lost a brother that night, but maybe, just maybe, I had finally reclaimed myself. The weeks that followed that final brutal phone call with Logan felt like a strange, uneasy calm after a storm. I had cut him off, severed the financial lifeline that had kept him afloat for years, and I expected the fallout to hit like a tidal wave. But instead, there was only silence. I blocked his number, cut off his access to my accounts, and even went as far as closing the joint credit card I had co-signed for him years ago. It felt good, like finally taking a deep, clean breath after being trapped in a smoke-filled room for too long. For the first time in years, my finances were my own again. But as it turns out, Logan wasn't the only one who had become dependent on my generosity. My parents called a few days later, their voices strained, their words laced with thinly veiled disappointment. "Ethan," my mother said, her voice trembling slightly, "Logan told us what happened. Why would you do this to him, to the family?" I closed my eyes, my grip tightening on the phone. Do what, Mom? Finally stand up for myself. Finally stop being the one everyone leans on while getting nothing in return. I heard my father's low voice in the background, a muffled grumble about family obligations and not turning your back on your blood. I felt a wave of bitterness rise in my chest. Mom, I've done more for this family than anyone else. I've paid bills, covered debts, and made sacrifices that no one even noticed. But enough is enough. I can't keep playing this role. I won't. She fell silent, the only sound on the line the soft crackle of static, like the ghosts of 1,000 unsaid words. Then finally she whispered, "I just don't want the family to fall apart." I almost laughed, the absurdity of her words cutting through the last shreds of my patience. The family. The same family that had pushed me to the side, that had let Logan's entitlement go unchecked for years, that had watched in silence as I was humiliated on their doorstep. "I'm not the one breaking this family, Mom," I said, my voice cold but steady. "Logan did that a long time ago. I just finally stopped pretending it wasn't happening." I ended the call, my hands shaking, my heart pounding in my chest. I felt a strange mix of grief and relief, like I had just closed a chapter in my life that I had been clinging to out of habit, not love. A few days later, I got another call, this time from Megan. I hesitated for a moment before picking up, unsure what to expect. "Ethan," she said, her voice quieter, more hesitant than I'd ever heard it. I just wanted to say thank you for everything you've done for us over the years. I know it probably doesn't feel like it, but it meant a lot. To me, at least." I felt a flicker of warmth, the first real sense of connection I had felt with my family in a long time. "Megan, I don't blame you. I can't do this anymore. I can't keep sacrificing my own peace for people who only see me as a wallet." She let out a shaky breath, the sound catching in her throat. "I understand. I just wanted you to know that. And I've left him. I took the kids, packed our things, and we're staying with my sister for now." I couldn't keep pretending either. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. I had expected anger, resentment, maybe even threats, but not this. Not a quiet, sincere thank you. "I hope you find some peace, Megan," I finally said, my voice softer now. "For you and the kids. You deserve better." She hung up and I set the phone down, a strange hollow ache settling in my chest. Logan had lost his family, his financial support, and now even his pride. And yet, as I sat there in the quiet of my apartment, I realized that I hadn't really lost anything at all. I had shed the weight of years of guilt, of misplaced responsibility, of trying to live up to a family that had never truly seen me. And in that emptiness, I felt something new, a quiet, tentative hope. I poured myself a drink, the amber liquid catching the soft glow of the Christmas lights I had finally taken the time to hang. I leaned back on my couch, letting the warmth spread through my chest as the first snowflakes of the season drifted past my window. For the first time in years, I felt free. Free to live my life on my own terms without the crushing weight of family expectations. Free to finally choose myself. And as the snow continued to fall, blanketing the world outside in a fresh, silent white, I knew one thing for certain. This Christmas, for the first time in a long time, I wasn't alone. I was just me. Story 2. People talk about red flags like they're flashing neon signs, but when you're inside the relationship, they look more like rose-colored curtains. Just part of the decor. My name's Riley. I'm 33. On paper, I'm a part-time public school teacher. I grade papers in cafes, keep a jar of colored pens in my bag, and show up to family dinners looking like the sweet, supportive wife. That's how my in-laws prefer it. We were sitting around their impossibly long mahogany dining table that night, eating overpriced takeout plated to look homemade. Margot, my mother-in-law, was halfway through telling everyone about the latest designer bracelet she'd just stumbled upon in Milan. Her husband Martin nodded absent-mindedly while scrolling through something on his phone. My husband Ben was focused on carving his steak to avoid making eye contact. It was all pretty standard until Margot dropped the bomb. "We're doing the Maldives next month, 3 weeks. Private villas, full staff, full escape," she said, swirling her wine. "Martin's already booked the resort." I looked up, eyebrows raised. "That sounds amazing," I said, careful to keep my tone neutral. "What's the occasion?" She tilted her head like I was slow. "Family tradition, rejuvenation trip. Ben said he'd cover your share." I blinked. "I'm sorry." 30 grand, Martin added without looking up. "Per couple." Ben cleared his throat and finally looked at me. "I meant to talk to you about it." I laughed once, short and bitter. "When before or after you offered up our savings?" "Don't be dramatic," Margot cut in, already rolling her eyes. "You don't have to worry about money, Riley. You're a part-time teacher, sweetie." "We all know Ben supports you." Lena, Ben's sister, looked horrified. "Mom!" "It's fine," I interrupted, "really. Because here's what Margot didn't know. I wasn't just a teacher. I was also the founder and CEO of a thriving ed tech company with international reach. I'd built it quietly over 5 years. My part-time teaching wasn't a cover, it was research. Staying close to the classroom gave me insights into what students and teachers actually needed. But I didn't say any of that. I smiled instead. "Sounds like a lovely trip. Thanks for including me." Margot gave me a thin-lipped smirk, completely misreading me as usual. Later that night, I sat in my car outside their house and checked my phone. 3 messages from Tasha, my business partner and best friend. They doubled the offer. "Meeting tomorrow to finalize. This could change everything." I grinned. My husband's family was about to drop 30 grand of our shared money on a beach vacation, assuming that money was coming from me, which it wasn't. Because the joint account, I kept it lean. The real money was elsewhere, in a private account under my business, quietly growing while I let everyone think I was just scraping by. It wasn't deception, it was survival. Tasha picked up on the first ring. "You're not going to believe this," I said, putting her on speaker. "Ben agreed to spend 30 grand on a trip to the Maldives, without asking me." "Oh, hell no," she muttered. "You're not serious." "And his mom's the one who told me, said I couldn't possibly contribute." She laughed darkly. "You know what I'm gonna say, right? Say it. Let them go. Let them blow every dollar they think is in that joint account, and then we time the Forbes piece to drop right when they come back." I leaned my head back against the seat. "You think it's petty?" "I think it's brilliant." I wasn't sure what hit harder, Ben making that call without even talking to me, or the fact that it didn't surprise me. He'd been doing that a lot lately, siding with Margot, brushing me off, making me feel like a guest in my own marriage. I didn't want revenge, not really, but I did want clarity. I wanted them all to see the version of me they'd ignored for years. I wanted them to feel what it was like to underestimate someone who was playing a much bigger game. The next day, the withdrawal hit. $65,000 gone from our joint account because Margot decided to upgrade everyone to first class and add on a private chef. I was in the middle of grading spelling tests when the banking alert came through. I stared at my phone, then dialed Ben. "You drained the joint account." "Riley, listen. You did it without telling me. That's not listening, that's stealing." He sighed. "My mom said we needed to move fast to get the bookings." "Ah, your mom?" I said, keeping my voice steady. "And I'm guessing she told you I wouldn't mind. You were on board at dinner." "No, I said I was polite at dinner. That's different." "Don't be mad," he said, suddenly soft. "We deserve this." He hung up before I could reply. That night, Tasha and I sat in my home office planning. Forbes wanted to do a cover story. The digital edition would drop the day Ben and his family returned. I would be front and center, the billion-dollar CEO no one saw coming. "Do you think they'll even read it?" I asked. Tasha snorted. "Please, Margot reads Forbes just to see who's richer than her." I laughed, but something inside me cracked open. They'd treated me like I was disposable. They took the money thinking it would set me back. But the truth was, they couldn't afford what was coming. And when it hit, they'd learn the difference between being wealthy and acting like it. I didn't hear from Ben for 2 days after the withdrawal. I think he sensed he'd crossed a line, though not deep enough to apologize, just enough to avoid conversation. That was fine, I had work to do. Tasha and I were deep in preparation for our product launch. Our platform had just secured international licensing. We were projecting $10 million in new revenue in the next quarter alone. And the Forbes cover was locked in. The headline, "The Billion-Dollar Teacher: How Riley Grant Quietly Built a Global EdTech Empire." I should have felt nervous, but I didn't. I felt ready. A week before their flight, Ben walked into the kitchen while I was making tea. He leaned against the counter and gave me the kind of smile he always used when he knew he'd screwed up but wasn't ready to admit it. I was thinking he said we could extend the trip by a few days. The resort has a package deal. I stirred my tea slowly. "Another few days," I said. "That'll be, what, an extra 10 grand? Probably," he shrugged. "But we deserve it, right? You've been working so hard lately. Don't you want to relax too?" He meant it like a peace offering, but it landed like another punch. "You know what?" I said, handing him a clean mug. "Sure, go all out. You only live once, right?" He blinked. "Wait, you're not mad?" I smiled. "Ben, if this trip makes you happy, who am I to get in the way?" He hesitated. "You're being weird. Maybe I'm just tired of being the responsible one." He laughed, relieved. "Well, I'm glad you're on board." I watched him walk away, so satisfied with himself. It hit me then he didn't even know what he'd taken from me. Not the money, the trust. But I let it go, because soon so would he. The night before their departure, Margot called. "I'm just calling to confirm the final details," she said briskly. "Lena and her fiancé are flying separately. Martin and I are arriving first. Ben's bringing your luggage, right?" I paused. "I'm not going." There was a sharp intake of breath. "What?" "I've got too much work. School projects, grading." "You're really going to skip this trip?" "I didn't agree to it in the first place." Margot scoffed. "You're being petty." "Am I?" She clicked her tongue. "Well, if you insist on missing it, at least don't make Ben feel guilty. He works hard. He needs this." "Then I hope you all enjoy yourselves." I hung up before she could say more. The day they flew out, I waved them off with a smile. Ben kissed my cheek, suitcase in hand. "We'll send you pictures," he said. "Looking forward to them," I replied, already knowing exactly what photos I'd be seeing: Margot in a caftan by a private pool, Martin sipping cocktails, Ben pretending to fit in. They wanted luxury. They were about to get it, just not the kind they expected. That week, I flew to New York. Forbes flew in their crew to my office in San Francisco. I did the interview from our conference room, framed by books, chalkboards, and charts. The journalist Anika was sharp. She asked thoughtful questions. Nothing sensational, just clean, powerful storytelling. "Why keep it a secret for so long?" she asked. I smiled, because I wanted the work to speak for itself, not the title, not the number. "Your husband and in-laws didn't know?" "No," I said. "They thought I was just the teacher in the background." "And you're okay with that?" I paused. "I'm not angry. I just think sometimes people need to be reminded that quiet doesn't mean powerless." She grinned. "This is going to land hard." Good. The cover story was scheduled to drop 2 days after their return. But Margot had other plans. 3 days into the trip, I got a message from Lena. She upgraded everyone to the royal villa. "Ben's freaking out. She said you wouldn't mind." I stared at the screen, shaking my head. Another 20 grand gone. Tasha texted me seconds later. "Hey, Darren just ran numbers on the new licensing deal. We're looking at 3.2 M in revenue. Launch in 48 hours. Press is ready." They had no idea what they were spending into. Every dollar they thought was depleting me was barely a decimal on the actual ledger. Let them. Back home, the Forbes magazine proofs came in. They were beautiful. Clean black and white portraits. A shot of me teaching. Another of me on the company floor with the product team. One more at a chalkboard surrounded by kids. The headline was elegant. "The educator who built an empire and never stopped teaching." The writer's note at the end read, "Riley Grant didn't need a throne to prove her power. She just needed a classroom." I approved it without a single edit. 3 days before they returned, I got a call from Lena. "Riley," she said cautiously, "I know something's up." "What do you mean?" "You've been calm. Too calm. Margot drained the account and you said nothing. That's not like you." I said nothing. "Look," she continued, "I don't know what you're planning, but I just want you to know I'm on your side. I always have been." "Thanks," I said softly. "You'll see soon enough." The day before their return, the Forbes feature hit digital. 1 million views in 6 hours. My email exploded. My LinkedIn inbox crashed. Old professors reached out. Former students sent messages. Venture capitalists I'd ignored came knocking. And then Ben texted, We land tomorrow. Can't wait to see you. And 5 minutes later, wait, what is this Forbes article? I didn't reply, because the next moment the real one was still to come. Tomorrow he'd walk into our home, the same home he'd left thinking I was just the support act in his story. And waiting for him would be a magazine on the doorstep, his wife. On the cover. I heard the car pull into the driveway just after noon. I was already in the kitchen calmly brewing tea, the print edition of Forbes propped on the counter beside me. I didn't have to open the door. I didn't have to say a word. I just waited. Ben's footsteps reached the porch first. I imagined the rustle of the envelope as he picked it up. Then a pause. He'd seen it. His breath likely caught in his throat. I could hear him call out low and confused. Mom, Riley's on. Wait, Riley. A second voice. Margot. Oh my God. Silence followed, stretched out like fabric pulled too tight. Then the front door creaked open. Ben walked in holding the magazine, his face pale, eyes wide like someone had told him the world was upside down. What is this? I took a sip of tea. That I said is the truth. The one you never asked about. He set the magazine down, slowly flipping through the pages like he was handling something sacred or dangerous. You run this company. Yes. And you've had this money all this time. Yes. And you let us take the savings. You took the savings, Ben. You didn't ask. He opened his mouth, closed it again. Margot entered next. The gold bracelet on her wrist caught the light as she snatched up the magazine. This is a joke, she muttered. You're a teacher. You grade papers. I nodded. Still do. I taught yesterday. But this says you're worth almost $2 billion. But that's not the part that matters. Margot looked like she might faint. You tricked us. No, I said, calm as stone. You assumed. That night the house was silent. No laughter, no updates from their trip. Just the weight of truth settling into every corner. Ben stood in the hallway like a man who didn't know where to sit in his own home. I feel like an idiot, he finally said. You feel that way because you never really saw me, I replied. You saw what you wanted to, what your mother told you to. He rubbed his face. You should have told me. I gave you 4 years to ask. He winced. So, what happens now? That's up to you. I left the magazine open on the coffee table. Then I went upstairs. The next morning, Tasha and I launched the updated platform. Over 600,000 students accessed it on day one. Servers held. Feedback was glowing. I barely checked my phone. By afternoon, it was on national news. That night, Ben knocked softly on my office door. Can we talk? I looked up. Sit down. He did, fidgeting like a kid waiting outside the principal's office. I read the article, all of it. Okay. You started this company while I thought you were running weekend tutoring sessions. Yes. And all those conferences weren't for school board workshops. He chuckled. A sad, breathless laugh. I don't even know how to apologize. I leaned forward. Don't start with me. Start with yourself. A week later, we were sitting in a counselor's office. Small room, soft lighting, neutral colors like a waiting room for honesty. The therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Ross, looked at us both. Why are you here? Ben didn't look at me when he answered. Because I chose my mother's opinion over my wife's reality. Dr. Ross nodded. And you, Riley? Because I let them all believe I was less just to keep the peace. And I think I forgot how much that peace cost me. The sessions were slow at first, but something shifted when Ben blocked Margot's number. I need space from her, he told me. I need to know what it means to think for myself. That was the first moment I believed he might be capable of change. 2 months later, we had dinner at Lena's house. Neutral territory. Margot was different. Not softer exactly, but quieter. She didn't criticize my outfit. She didn't ask about money. Instead, she passed me the roasted carrots and said, I heard your company just partnered with the Department of Education. That's impressive. That was her version of an olive branch. I took it. Thanks, I replied. We're just getting started. Lena raised a glass. To uncomfortable truths and the courage to face them. Ben smiled across the table. To new beginnings. After dinner, I found Margot alone on the patio sipping tea. She didn't look at me when I joined her. You know, she said quietly, I was proud of Ben for marrying someone smart. I just never expected you to be smarter than all of us. I smiled, small and tired. I never needed to be smarter. Just respected. She nodded slowly. I think I'm starting to understand that. I let that be enough for now. That night back home, Ben wrapped his arms around me as we watched the last light fade from the skyline. I can't undo the past, he said, but I want to be different going forward. Good, I said, because I won't live quietly anymore. He pulled me closer. Loud suits you. 6 months passed. Ben started his own small firm, Education Law, helping startups protect their ideas. Tasha and I opened 2 new satellite offices, Our platform reached 1.2 million students. One morning, as I packed for a conference overseas, Ben handed me an envelope. "Open it later," he said. I read it that night in my hotel room. It wasn't long, just 2 sentences. "I fell in love with you again, this time fully, and this time I see you." I folded it carefully, tucked it between the pages of my first Forbes feature. I never needed revenge. All I needed was truth, and the strength to stand in it fully. The money that was never the power. The power was being underestimated and deciding one quiet day not to be anymore. Story 3. My name's Rachel Ward. I'm 33, and 3 months ago I was forced to pack up my desk and walk out of the law firm I helped grow because my little sister Lily wanted my job. And apparently she was willing to ruin me to get it. "You're done here, Rachel," my boss, Alan Ross, said, barely able to meet my eyes. "The evidence is clear. You leaked confidential client info." I just sat there, not arguing, not crying. I looked through the glass wall of his office and saw Lily sipping water by the cooler, pretending not to watch. I'd worked at Ross & Hale for 9 years. I brought in clients, managed big cases, trained half the junior staff. Lily joined 2 years ago and never once beat me on performance. But what she lacked in reputation, she made up for in ambition and manipulation. Lily was 30 and had always wanted to be the star. She hated hearing clients request me over her. She hated that I was the one invited to firm leadership meetings. So she found a way to flip the game. Alan slid a stack of printed emails across the desk. My name was all over them. Forwarded confidential info, sent to competing firms. Only I never sent them. "Can I at least see the metadata?" I asked calmly. Alan shook his head. "It confirmed the trail. It came from your login. Rachel, I'm sorry." Yeah, so was I. Sorry that I didn't stop this sooner. Sorry that I ever trusted Lily. I stood up slowly, walked out with what dignity I had left, and Lily, she practically skipped after me. "Bye, Rach," she said with the fakest smile I've ever seen. "Karma, right?" Security was already waiting by my desk. They handed me a box and let me pack up my things while the rest of the office whispered behind their screens. I heard my name more than once. I saw Lily watching the whole time. She expected me to cry, to beg, but I didn't. Because I wasn't surprised. What Lily didn't know, and what would come back to bite her in ways she couldn't imagine, was that I'd seen this coming. 3 months earlier, I started noticing weird things. Calendar invites deleted, files altered, clients calling about meeting changes I hadn't made. I'd grown up with Lily. I knew the signs of her sabotage. She'd been doing it our whole lives. When we were kids, she'd break something, smile sweetly, and convince our mom I was the one who did it. I wasn't about to let her do that to my career, so I set a trap. I had it quietly monitor activity on my account. I started documenting changes, not just the ones Lily made to my work, but the ones she made to clients' records. And most importantly, I'd set up an encrypted backup system just in case. Which turned out to be the smartest thing I'd ever done. I placed my favorite coffee mug in the box. Inside it, hidden in the double-walled bottom, was a flash drive. On that flash drive, every bit of proof I needed to clear my name and more. Lily thought she'd won. She had no idea I was already 3 moves ahead. Back at my apartment that evening, I sat on the couch staring out over the city. It still stung getting fired from a place I'd poured my heart into, but mostly I felt calm, focused. My phone buzzed. It was from Daniel Kim, one of our top clients at the firm, a massive real estate developer with a sharp mind and zero tolerance for nonsense. "Just heard. We need to talk." I don't believe a word of it. I replied, "Dinner." He answered within seconds. 7 p.m., my place. I smiled. Not everyone at the firm was easily fooled. That night I sat across from Daniel in his penthouse explaining everything. The fake emails, the tampered files, the IT logs, and Lily. When I finished, he leaned back and said, "I believe you. I also think it's time we talk about something I've been planning for a while." He slid a folder across the table. Inside was a business proposal for a boutique legal firm, one he'd fund, one I would lead. "You've got the client trust, the reputation, the brains. I've got the capital and the connections. Let's build something smarter than Ross & Hale. Cleaner, stronger." I looked at him stunned. "You're serious?" As a heart attack. And just like that, Lily's scheme handed me something far better than a job. A company. Over the next week, I worked quietly from home. My old clients, including some of the firm's biggest accounts, started calling me directly. Word travels fast in legal circles. I didn't bash Lily or the firm, I just told the truth when asked. By the end of the second week, I'd signed 5 major contracts, all with clients who'd followed me out the door. Daniel handled the paperwork. I assembled a small dream team of ex-colleagues, ones I trusted. Some had left Ross and Hale on their own. Others were just looking for a place with actual integrity. The new firm was real and thriving. But I wasn't done yet. Not until Lily faced the truth about what she'd done. It came from an unexpected place, a woman named Meredith Lang. She ran compliance for a hedge fund, one I'd seen mentioned several times in Lily's unauthorized messages. Turns out Lily hadn't just framed me. She'd been sharing confidential info with outside traders, using her job to pass along insider knowledge in exchange for kickbacks. Meredith's team had started connecting dots, and when they reached out to Daniel, he sent them my way. I added the final pieces of evidence to my file. Names, dates, transfers, and then I sent it all with a bow to the SEC. That night I got a text from Lily. "Hope you're settling into unemployment okay?" I didn't respond, because the next time she'd hear my name would be from federal investigators. 2 days after I sent the file to the SEC, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it ring out. Then another came, same number. And then a text. "This is Agent Holbrook with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Please return our call." I didn't hesitate. I'd been waiting for this moment since the day Lily smiled as I got walked out. Agent Holbrook was direct, professional. "Ms. Ward, we've reviewed your file. It's comprehensive. Impressive, frankly. We'd like to move forward with a formal investigation." "Do you need anything else from me?" I asked. "For now, just your cooperation. But I have to ask, do you understand what this could mean for your sister?" I paused, not because I hadn't thought about it, but because I had at length. She knew what she was doing. She didn't just frame me. She compromised client confidentiality, shared insider information, and abused her position. She deserves whatever consequences come. "Understood." He hung up just like that. No drama, no theatrics. Just the beginning of Lily's fall. Meanwhile, our new firm, Ward & Kim Legal, was gaining traction fast. Daniel had lined up press coverage. Former Ross and Hale clients were flocking to us, some quietly, some publicly, a few with a bit of glee. What surprised me was how many people reached out not just to offer business but to thank me. Apparently, I wasn't the only one Lily had stepped on. I wasn't the only one who'd noticed the shift in her. She'd always been clever, but once she tasted power, it became something else. Like watching a wildfire, all heat and hunger with no plan but destruction. One afternoon, I was reviewing client contracts when my phone rang again. This time it was Alan Ross. I stared at the screen for a beat, let it ring once, twice. Then I answered. "Rachel," he started. No hello, no small talk, just my name and a weight in his voice. "Alan, I need to ask, did you really send that file to the SEC?" I didn't lie. "Yes." Silence. "I didn't know," he said, voice tight. "About the trades, about the outside contact. You thought I was expendable?" I finished for him. "I thought you were angry, that you wanted to sabotage the firm." I didn't laugh, but I wanted to. "You believe the sister who always lied over the employee who never gave you a reason to doubt her." He didn't deny it. "I made a mistake," he said finally, "a costly one." I kept my voice steady. "Alan, your mistake cost me my job, my reputation, and nearly my sanity. I had to rebuild everything from the ground up." "I know." A pause. Then he said, "She's been suspended. Internal review. Clients are leaving, and the partners are furious. She broke the law, Alan. The review's not your call anymore. You'll be dealing with the SEC soon." His breath hitched. "You didn't just bet on the wrong person," I added. "You built your firm around her lies. That's on you." Then I hung up. That night I got a voicemail from my mom. "Rachel, we need to talk. Lily's in trouble. She told us what you did. This isn't like you. Please call me." There it was. Classic. Not Lily did something illegal. Not, "We're sorry we didn't believe you." Just, "How could you?" For as long as I could remember, Lily was the golden child. I was the dependable one. She was the bold one. I was the planner. And whenever things got messy, I was expected to clean them up. Not this time. A week passed. Then came the headline, "Partner at Ross and Hale under investigation for insider trading." There was a picture of Lily, not one of her glossy, confident PR photos. No, this one showed her ducking into a car, hair pulled back, no makeup. Caught off guard. The article named her, outlined the firm's loss of several high-profile clients, cited an anonymous whistleblower, me, and mentioned the SEC's interest in the wider firm. Daniel forwarded it to me with one word. Boom. The next morning, I got another call. From Lily. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to pick up. She didn't start with hello. "You ruined me." Her voice cracked, anger, disbelief, maybe fear underneath it all. "No, Lily, You ruined yourself. I just stopped covering for you. Do you know what Mom said? She thinks I should move in with them? Start over. You've turned everyone against me. No, I said calmly. You did that all on your own. There was a pause. I didn't think they'd actually investigate. I just wanted your job. I wanted to prove I could lead. I let that sit in the air. You wanted to prove you were better by burning everything down, I said. But I wasn't your obstacle, Lily. You were. She started to speak, then stopped. I'm not going to jail, you know. That's up to the courts, I replied. I'm your sister. You should have remembered that before you threw me under the bus. I hung up, and this time it was me who smiled. 3 months passed. The headlines faded. Lily's case moved from speculation to process, and I kept building. Ward and Kim Legal took off faster than Daniel or I expected. Former Ross and Hale clients kept calling. New ones came through referrals, intrigued by the firm that stood against corruption. We weren't flashy, but we were smart, honest, intentional. People noticed. Our team tripled in size within 10 weeks. We moved into a bigger office, got our own espresso machine. A dumb detail maybe, but it mattered to me. It was something Lily never thought about, the small, quiet comforts that made people want to stay. One rainy Friday afternoon, I stood by the windows of our new conference room sipping my coffee, watching the rain slide down the glass, the city humming beyond. The receptionist buzzed. Rachel, someone's here asking to see you. Who? She paused. Your father. I closed my eyes, of course. He looked smaller than I remembered. Maybe it was the way his jacket hung awkwardly on his frame, or the fact that he didn't meet my eyes right away. Hi, he said, voice soft. You've done well for yourself. I nodded. What brings you here? He looked around the room like he was afraid of being judged. I wanted to talk. About Lily. I raised an eyebrow. You mean the part where she framed me for corporate sabotage and nearly cost me everything? His lips pressed into a thin line. She made mistakes, he admitted, but she's still your sister. I set my coffee down. No, she was my sister. Now she's someone I used to protect. He looked surprised. Rachel, that's cold. No, I said, calm but firm. What's cold is forging documents, lying to partners, selling secrets, and then blaming your own family for the fallout. He flinched. I didn't come here to fight, he said. She's struggling. The legal fees drained everything. She lost her apartment, her job. She's staying with us. She doesn't leave the house. Good. He blinked. She needs to sit with that, I said. Not just the consequences, the cause. I thought maybe you could visit her. I shook my head slowly. You know, I said the day I left Ross and Hale? Lily smiled. She watched me get escorted out and said, Karma's a witch. She really believed she'd won. My voice didn't rise, but the air shifted. She didn't just hurt me, she underestimated me. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. After a moment, he stood. If you change your mind, she's still your family. As he turned to go, I said quietly, that word family doesn't mean what you think it does. He didn't look back. The following week, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I picked up. Rachel Ward, a clipped voice asked. Yes. This is Cynthia Cross with the Bar Association. I'm calling regarding your former firm, Ross and Hale. Your sister has officially been disbarred as of this morning. The ruling was unanimous. I thanked her. Hung up. Then I sat there for a moment. No joy, no satisfaction. Just quiet. The storm had passed. That Friday, our firm hit a milestone. Our first-year revenue projection, we surpassed it in 6 months. Daniel and I stood on the rooftop of our building with our team. Someone popped champagne. There was music, laughter, people dancing in the twilight. I watched them all. Smart, kind, dedicated people who believed in what we were building. People who stayed late not out of fear but passion. People who brought their whole selves to the table. I thought about Lily again, about how she always wanted the spotlight, about how I never did. I just wanted to build something that lasted. And now I had. Later that night, after everyone left, Daniel and I lingered on the rooftop. You did it, he said, handing me another glass. Built it from scratch, without shortcuts. I looked out over the city. No, we did it. He smiled. Still feels surreal though, doesn't it? I nodded. Every day. He leaned on the railing. You ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't seen through her plan? If you hadn't fought back? All the time, I said honestly, I would have disappeared. Silently. And she would have kept rising until she ruined more people. Daniel paused. Do you regret anything? No, I said. Not even what I lost. Because I gained something better. What's that? Clarity. A few weeks later, I got a package at the office. No sender listed. Inside was a letter. No envelope. Just folded paper neatly written. No perfume. No tear stains. Just Lily's handwriting. Rachel, I don't expect you to forgive me. I'm not sure I'll ever forgive myself, but I wanted you to know I see it now. All of it. The damage, the lies, the way I let envy turn me into someone I don't recognize. You were always stronger than me, but I couldn't accept that. So I tried to ruin you, and instead I destroyed myself. I'm starting over. I'm working part-time, reading a lot, therapy too. I don't know what comes next, but I hope someday we can talk. Lily, I didn't respond. Not yet. But I didn't throw it away either. I placed it in my drawer next to a framed photo of our team at our 1-year anniversary celebration. Smiling, real, whole. Some stories end with revenge, some with redemption. Mine, it ended with truth and a beginning. Because sometimes the best way to win isn't to destroy someone else. It's to rebuild yourself stronger than they ever imagined you could be. I'm Rachel Ward. Once the quiet one in the shadows, now CEO, founder, leader, and finally free.